Yes, hello there and welcome to today's episode of Weekend Rewind. Yes, this is when we put our hands back into the Join Up Dots vaults, swirl it around a bit and find an episode that maybe has got lost in the midst of time. And this is in response to the amount of requests we get from people who say, David, with all the episodes you've released, where should we start? Well, it's very hard to find a place, so we're just going to randomly pick one, and this is today's episode. Enjoy.
When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Yes, hello there. Good morning, world, and welcome to episode 104 of Join Up Dots. You wouldn't expect it to be Entrepreneur on Fire or anything like that. No, it's going to be Join Up Dots because this is the place to come. And why is it the place to come? Because I tell you what, we are getting better and better guests. Not just that the guests at the beginning weren't good, but it's finding its feet. And I think that's the sort of message that I want to get out to all of you who are trying to do new things and trying to follow your heart and grab the dream. It does take a while to get it going, but once it does, boy, it's a ride, and hopefully you're enjoying the ride as much as I am doing it for you. Right, so let me introduce you to today's guest. She is a lady on a mission to empower the females of the world to, well, rock. Being an entrepreneur herself, she was often struck by the isolated way that women seem to operate within the business world, and so she set out to build a platform for them to be heard. By launching the podcast Biz Women Rock, she has done just that and now provides interviews and motivational content from her base in Florida. But that is just a small part of what makes her what she is. As with her husband Chris, since 2008, the two have owned a business owners organisation called the Tampa Bay Business Owners, which supports local entrepreneurs by providing top-notch education, opportunities to connect with peers and leadership programs, and I suppose everything that could possibly be useful for a business owner to work on their businesses. But what I want to do is join up the dots by finding out, like all our guests, what were the key elements in her childhood that she can link to adult life, and what made her transition from her period in healthcare to wanting to work with her husband. I've worked with my wife and it wasn't easy, I promise you. And when she isn't working 24 hours a day, what inspires her to get going again after another exhausting day creating such value to the world? Well, let's find out as we bring onto the show the one and only Katie Krimitsos. How are you?
David, what's going on? Thanks so much for having me on today.
I've had a nightmare with your introduction, Katie. I had a brain blister with your surname, and everything went mad on that. But did I get through it?
You were fine. It was wonderful.
Well, I'm going to call you Katie from now on, and I'm not going to go anywhere near your surname. But your surname is obviously not a sort of classic American name. Is it something like Greek or something?
It's very Greek. I married into the big fat Greek wedding. That's what I got to marry into. So my husband, his family is first generation Greek. His parents came over from Greece. So very, very much like heavy, huge Italian, huge Greek family.
Are they sort of like classic olive munching bunch? Do they eat olives like lunatics?
Ironically, my husband actually hates olives and he hates tomatoes, which are like Greek staples, but he loves his feta cheese and chicken and all that sort of stuff. But his mom is a phenomenal cook. And so, yes, they do. They love all of your traditional, Greek foods.
Because olives are, they're basically the devil's food. They are disgusting, aren't they?
I love them. I actually, oh my gosh, I love them. When we were kids, we used to have, like for Thanksgiving or a really nice meal, my mom would put in like the cans of the black olives, with the big holes in the sides of them. And we used to stick them on our fingers and like eat them off, like go chase each other around and like just eat off of the olives the whole time. And the whole, bowl of olives would be gone before dinner was even served.
But it's the stones in there. I once threw one in my mouth because I thought it was a pickled onion. Do you have pickled onions in America?
I'm sure we do, but it doesn't really sound very good.
Well, it's just an onion, and it's just marinating in a pickled jar, and we get them at Christmas, and if I get one in the house I will eat them constantly. I just can't resist them, and so I'm a bit sort of a gannet on the pickled onions, and I thought this olive, I thought it was one of those. Threw it into my mouth with gusto, bit down on it, oh my god, almost broke me tooth, and it's put me off ever since.
I was going to say, those things are hard. You could definitely break your tooth on that.
Yeah, it certainly is. So we're not going to talk about olives, although it is a fascinating, I'm sure Popeye would love to hear this conversation. So you are somebody that really is rocking. You've got so much on your plate. It makes me wonder how you actually managed to get on the show today.
I schedule it. That is my number one solution to managing so many things. I think every business owner, every business-minded person has a lot on their plate. Every single person who really is wanting to move forward and make a difference in this world and do great things and live, this exceptional life always is busy. And I think the ones who really succeed at achieving everything are the ones who get very, very good at time management and very, very good at calendarizing their priorities in their days. So I work very hard at that. I am so not perfect at it. I fail probably more oftentimes than I succeed, but I'm getting a lot better at it.
But with women as well, you have a certain amount of maintenance you have to do, don't you? You can't just go out looking rough like men can. We can get away with it. So, at the moment, I haven't shaved for a few days. I'm just wearing a pair of shorts and that's it. That's why we don't do webcam here. I wouldn't want to put you through that, Katie. But with yourself, women have to sort of maintain themselves, don't they? So that adds pressure on you as well.
It doesn't really add pressure. I think that's something that's a part of like your routine of taking care of yourself that that you kind of get really comfortable with and you know how to schedule. The only thing that really, sucks about it is that I can't go to the gym in the middle of the day because then it's like a whole 2 hours chunk out of my day because I have to not only work out, but now I have to actually, I can't take a 5-minute shower and leave and go to a meeting. Like I have to actually like prepare my hair, do my makeup. So that's kind of the only setback, but it's not that big of a deal.
Why would you want to go to the gym anyway? I don't understand the gym at all. I've never been into a gym once in my life. And I just think it's just making yourself sweaty and feeling uncomfortable.
Oh, I love it. And, I know the whole like premise of the show is really reaching back and coming up with really powerful moments from your past. I'm an athlete and I grew up an athlete, and that was a huge part of who I am today and how I identify myself and why I do the things that I do. So I love it. And probably my biggest challenge is making sure that I fit it in amongst the sometimes very, minuscule hours of sleep that I get or, the other responsibilities that are happening in my life. But it's a constant good challenge that I love to have, which is making sure I fit it in.
I was speaking to a chap last night who said that he gets up, and first of all, I thought this was total madness. He gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning and runs to the gym. Why would you run to then work out? And then he then has his whole day planned so that he can get to the gym again in the evening and then run home.
Wow. Yeah, that's intense, man. He must be training for something.
He's a madman. You're too polite.
I think everyone has. I think that as we grow up as adults, we find what works really well in our lives, like the things that feed us, and I will say that staying fit, working out, sweating, having that time for myself is so vital. And, I am definitely not the 2-a-day type of a person right now in my life, but I've been there. I've definitely trained for triathlons and trained for, different things that, I've wanted to do that sort of stuff. But it's just priorities and how it makes you feel. Like for me, if I work out and it feels great, I have so much more energy. I'm a heck of a lot more focused. I will choose, great eating options for that day, typically speaking. And, just overall, it sort of sets the tone of my day. So I love it. And it's a huge stress reliever. So I think when I started to realize at a very, very early age what effect that had on my whole mentality and stability as a person, you just start to, make that a priority.
The nearest I ever got to it, I was on the sofa once eating a bag of Doritos and I heard... and that was it. If I hear the Rocky music, that's about the nearest I get an urge to actually do anything of a physical nature. And other than that...
Rocky's so inspirational that you could sit on the couch eating a bag of Doritos and feel like you've just done a great workout. I think that that's part of it.
I like that. I'm going to actually market that. The new way to look after yourself, a Rocky box set and a bag of Doritos.
I like it.
That's perfect. So do you, in all sensibleness, do you actually sort of focus in on mind and body? Is it sort of a combination for you that really means that you're cooking on gas?
Yeah. I mean, I think that I'm just somebody who I've always been somebody who is constantly trying to figure out how I can be better, how I can improve, how I can know myself better, how I can, by doing that, kind of lend myself to the world in a way that I have always felt that's very important. And so, yes, that's mind. That it's feeding my mind, feeding my body, feeding my relationships. I've just always been very, very aware of that stuff. So, yeah, I'm the person who's constantly reading, great motivational books. I'm, listening to stories of people who have done really great things, which is why, I love my podcast and then trying my best to make sure that physically I'm those things are all on, kind of, what do they say? Like, firing on all cylinders.
And even sort of in your childhood in Arizona, because Arizona's sort of really hot and dusty and stuff, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Dry heat. It's dry heat.
It is very hot and dusty. I've been there numerous times, and if I was going to describe it, it's a lovely place. And one of the fascinating things about Arizona, I'll come back to this sort of dusty hotness as well, but there's so many entrepreneurs over there. The amount of people that I have spoken to that seem to be four areas, I would say. And before I started this, I thought it was all going to be like New York and places like that. It seems to be San Diego. It seems to be Boulder. It seems to be Florida, and it seems to be in Arizona. That they seem to be the four areas, and they're all kind of down at the bottom, aren't they? If you run a sort of across the map, it's all down there.
Yeah. I think people, especially when you're talking about entrepreneurs, I think people always choose. I think that everyone's looking for lifestyle. I mean, if you take the steps to be an entrepreneur and to sort of have, full say over your destiny and what you want to do with your life, I think part of that includes like, how do I want my lifestyle to be? And, the commonality between all of those places, that they are beautiful places to live. The, lifestyle there is very, very nice. I mean, San Diego, you're on the water. Florida, for the most part, you're on the water. Florida is a very, very good place for business, for tax purposes. Boulder is gorgeous and very, very progressive. And so is Arizona. I mean, Arizona has its own very, very different beauty from all of the other ones. So, yeah, I think, and I think like finds like. So you start finding these pockets that just grow and grow and grow, and people are building out newer and more innovative ideas on how to build.
I've never seen people as fat as in Florida, though. They're huge, aren't they?
Wow, I don't know. I haven't taken like the latest BMI from our statistics, but I mean, there's Americans. We definitely have that whole scale of people. I'll tell you that.
It amazes me that in a state that basically you're spending your entire day cramming yourself into these little carriages and going off at 120 miles an hour on these roller coasters, that the population are making themselves so fat that they can't get into them.
Yeah, well, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff behind that. Just the, I don't know. People have more sedentary jobs. They're, not moving as much. There's a lot of factors into that.
You're the nicest person, aren't you?
I know. I'm so diplomatic, aren't I?
You are. I can't get you going on any subject.
I love it. If you talk to me about business and family and traveling. I mean, just all those things. I definitely have opinions about all that stuff.
Right. Okay. When you're traveling with very fat people, did I get you? Did I lure you into my world?
Great. Yes.
You're in there. So what was life as a child for you, like in Arizona? Were you sort of entrepreneurial? Were you somebody that was always flexing your hustle muscle? Because you certainly seem that somebody that is a hustle muscle monster at the moment, the amount of things that you've got going on with you and your husband. So
I love the
was that something that has sort of developed over the ages, or was it true to your unique self?
I was not, I didn't know the word entrepreneur until I was 22. So I had no concept of people owning their own companies. I had my sort of thought process of what success meant growing up was, really the typical, work so hard at what you love that you get a great job and you move up the ladder. And I thought I was going to be this great executive woman. And that flowed for a long time. But I grew up in a family. There were 6 kids in my family, very gregarious family. I mean, I have parents who are just super amazing people, so good at being parents. Like, I truly cannot point a finger at anything that they did that, really screwed us up. Although believe me, each of us has our little faux pas and ways. But just really did such a good job at raising such great kids. My siblings and I are very, very close. And so I think what that did is that brought out this need for me to prove myself in some ways or to get attention in some ways. And so I figured, where am I really good? And let me be really great at that and sort of, just be some way, somehow inside of me. My mother still makes fun of me for this. I'm sure I was a brand new newborn baby and I needed to achieve. Like, there's something in me that needs to achieve. I need to accomplish. I need to do something so great. And I don't know what that feeds. I just think that it's there. So, one of the major things that I really clung on to was athletics. And, from a young girl, I was, playing, t-ball and whatever other stuff as a little child. But then into junior high and high school, I got very serious about athletics. And I just loved it. And that was where I could achieve. I achieved very high as an athlete, achieved very high as a scholar, and just those were the ways that I could be very, very driven. Again, my mom still makes fun of me at the fact she's like, you always had to be 200%. Like, you could never be happy with 100%. It was never good enough for you. You had to keep on moving. And, I haven't lost that.
And did you sort of know why you got that? Or is it just something in you? Did you remember a moment in your life where you realised that you were raising your game against the children around you?
I just wanted, there's probably some sort of psychological thing that happened when I did perform at a max amazing level. And I got a lot of accolades for that. I got a lot of praise for that. And in a family, when I'm trying to stand out amongst 5 other people, that felt really good. So I don't think there's one moment. I think that there's a lot of it where, I could identify amongst 5 other kids as the athlete and the achiever in that sense, where my other sister was known as this, and my other sister was known as this, and my brother was known as this. So I got to kind of carve out my identity there, which felt really good. Like, I could belong to the family, but I was also identifiable as the athlete and as the scholar. And and I just think that over the years, it fills something in me. I'll be very straight with you that in a lot of my personal development, I'm 35 now. So in my personal development through my teens and 20s, I've really had to take note as to why I need that. And does that come from a place of kind of negative need, like I'm not good enough, so I have to be this achiever? Or is that pulling from the roots of, I want to be an achiever because there's so many things that I can give to this world? And I'll be honest with you, there are moments when there have definitely been years where it's dipped from, I'm not good enough, so I need to achieve. And I've really had to do a lot of personal work to make sure that that's not where it's coming from, that my desire to be just to do all of these great things really truly comes from this place of, I have so much to give and I want to light up this world, and I know it's here. I know I'm a vessel for that. So I've really had to do a lot of work to plug into that and maintain that.
But the difference with you, Katie, and so many people in the world, and for me, for years and years and years, is we have those vibes, we have those feelings. We feel when we're sitting at that desk doing a job that we don't really like, that, I should be doing so much more than this. But we don't know what we should be doing. And the passion or the unique path or whatever we talk about in these conversations hasn't become visualized to us. So you seem to really sort of found your path quite early on. Was it just work ethic that drove you on to find your path?
I did and I did not find my path, actually. I mean, as a high schooler, I thought I was going to be the world's first female baseball player for the Cubs. I was going to play third base for the Cubs. That's what I was going to do. And then in college, I was going to be this, architect who just was like this total executive woman with my briefcase going downtown. And then somewhere along the way, I had a shakeup. I've always been a creative and a very kind of organized business person. I'm not, when it comes to business, I'm not like this person who has like thousands and thousands of great ideas. I'm the person who organizes those ideas and manages those ideas and builds them out and implements. So kind of my personality is one of organization but I definitely have this creative side. And so, I think in high school and then definitely in college, I got the writing bug. I wanted to be a writer. But at that moment, I knew that I wanted to write because I wanted to impact people. That was probably the first moment where I really recognized in myself, I want to have an impact with people. And I have been so impacted by these great books that I want to be able to do it that way. And I'm a pretty, even back then, I was a pretty damn good writer. So I would take these writing classes to really hone that craft and always had this desire to be a writer. So, and to affect people that way through these great stories. And it wasn't fiction stories. I was definitely not that creative. It was like through these personal narratives. And it was because I found that the more that I shared these stories with people about whether it was in just a verbal story and I was willing to talk about something that happened to me that is, something that happens to other people, or that I wrote this story about an experience that I had. No matter what it was, I was willing to be very vulnerable and authentic about what happened. And people definitely connected to that. They definitely were like, oh my God, I'm not the only one. Thank God. And that was probably the most foundational moment where I was like, I know I'm going to be doing this. Now, I'm a podcaster now, and that, I think podcasting and writing are very similar in the sense that it's mass communication that can make an impact, but in a very personal way. David, through this conversation, it's you and I and that one listener who's listening to this in their earbuds, and we get to have, a conversation that truly affects that one person. But then you get to multiply that by the hundreds of thousands of people that you're touching every single month. So that's really powerful to me. But it took me a long squiggly line, for years to really find a place where I felt like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And honestly, that probably didn't happen until a few years ago.
But I reckon you would have been doing what you should have been doing wherever you were doing it. Now, if that doesn't make sense, I'm going to explain that. Because you seem to me, and this is the first time that we've spoken tonight, you seem to have a switch that you inspire when you talk. You can hear it coming out of you, and I reckon if you went back to your college days, you was the inspirational kid and you were the one that was going to be the high achiever. Actually, you do that book business in America at the end of your school where you have these pictures and whatever.
The yearbook, yeah.
Yearbook, yeah. We don't have those over here at all. We just kind of walk out the school and go to the pub. Just so that we can speak to the teachers again. That's where they're all going to be. And what did they say about you? Did they say anything about you?
Oh my goodness. Yes. I don't remember, who would be voted to be like the, most successful or whatever. I don't remember what the heck I was voted for, but what I was known for, how people would describe me in high school was very much like I was friends with everyone. High schools, I don't know if this is the way in England, but in America, the high schools are like, you got your pockets of people. You have, the stoners, the jocks, the nerdy yearbook people. You have all these pockets. And I was friends with all of them. Like everyone, I was very jovial. I really enjoyed being around everyone. But I really, while I was good on this, once again, a mass scale, I really specialized in these one-on-one relationships. So throughout my life, I've been very, very blessed with awesome friends, and I am that person in the friendship. I'm the person who's like, okay, you can vent, but hey, you could do it. You could do anything you want. I've always been that person. Like with my siblings, I mean, to their annoyance sometimes, I'm like, you could totally do it. Yes, this is possible. And I've just always been that person.
Now, I'm that person as well. It must annoy people. And when I get my inspirational head on, I can actually see people light up in front of me. And it was something that for years I didn't realise was a sort of talent, really. I just thought it was something that I did. But now doing this, I can actually hear it happen over the mic as well. And it is that ability to relate and connect and find the sort of inner strength and the inner secrets to people, which does make you incredibly valuable to the world. And the tagline to this show is connecting our past to build our future. And one of the things that has come out in these shows, Katie, is the fact that when we talk about finding your passion and finding your unique self, and people always say to us, I don't know what it is. I need to know what it is, but people keep on telling me find the passion. It seems to be the case now that if you look back to your younger self, your childhood self, the things that you could naturally do and you liked. For example, with you was friends with everyone. And so what were you doing? You were supporting them. You were building networks. You were doing what you are doing now because it is your skill. It's your inherent skill. But it's the bit in the middle where we go into a job just because it pays us the money, or we go and get a qualification because we think that is the job for us, that we actually lose track of what we were doing when we were kids. And it's been fascinating to see time and time and time again that the real strengths of somebody now is exactly what they were doing when they were a youngster and they weren't being paid for it.
Yeah, that's very, 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 very true. I think that as you grow older into adulthood, when you enter adulthood, I think it's this constant like, who am I and what do I really want to do according to what I thought my vision was, this high level executive woman. And at that time, and according to what we think the world, on top of that is like, the world telling us that this is sort of a good path, right? So I think you spend a lot of time. I think I spent my 20s figuring that out. I spent my 20s kind of jumping from job to job, from different idea to different idea. I never stopped dreaming. I mean, I literally was a person that I would go into a job, and after 6 months, I would be like, I don't enjoy this, and this I can't be me here. So I'll see you later. I was never the person who stayed for longer than it would bring me joy. I mean, I worked at a bank, during a summer in college, and I literally quit. I think it was like after 5 months I was there. So I literally quit, and this was the reason why. I went and told my boss, I'm sorry, I can't work here anymore. It's too dark in here for me, and I need to be out in the sun, and I can't see the sun, and that's joyful out there, and this is not. I'm sure I said it a lot more smooth than that, but I mean, I wouldn't stay at a place for too long if it didn't lend itself to me learning how to be more of myself, and if I couldn't find some of myself there. I knew that I was there to find something. I was there to find something and learn something, but none of them fit. So I just kept on going from job to job.
Because I'm a bit of a sticker, to be honest. The first job I did, I was there for 13 years, and then the next one really was 10 years. So I've done sort of 2 big blocks and a couple of in-betweeners. But the very first day that I walked into my first job, I thought to myself, I'm not going to be here long. I'm going to be in the new Duran Duran. That's what I'm going to be. And I remember walking up the stairs thinking, 6 months and I'll be out and I'll have my record out and all that kind of stuff. And then I'd work really hard with my mates and bands, and we'd play keyboards and we'd write songs and all that kind of stuff. And then that kind of drifted away. And then I thought, I'm going to be an author. And I started writing books. And I've got a couple of books. I have never published them. They're just sort of sitting on a disc. And they're finished. They could, be thrown out to the world. But I realised that it wasn't the actual business of writing a book. It was just testing things out to find out what I wanted to do. And then once I became a trainer and I had to stand up in front of people, there was those moments that I thought to myself, this is what I should be doing. This is what I should be doing. I should be engaging with people and helping them to develop. But I never saw it as a path. I just thought it was something that I'd been pushed into. And it's only now when I'm out of it, I almost think that my path is back in there. And as we were talking about at the beginning of the show, I see the podcast as building a global movement and really supporting and developing people across the world. So it's no different from doing the training to a classroom than it is doing this. It's making those one-to-one connections, which you do so marvelously.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's exactly what you said. It's taking the skills and the things that you really connected with and love to do as a younger person. And now, you actually doing them in a way that is moving you forward. And you're very cognizant of that stuff, like every single one of my jobs that I had, I can take out pockets of skill sets that I learned and apply them to what I'm doing right now. I mean, every single one, I was very heavy into communication. I knew how to talk to the janitor and I knew how to talk to the president of the company. Like I learned that skill. Event planning, that's so much of what we do here in our local organization. I've been event planning in some way, shape, or form since I was 16 years old. I mean, there's managing people there in some way, shape, or form. I've had some sort of, interaction with how to manage people. So all of those things and connecting with people and being able to kind of move things forward, like all of those things, I have experienced some portion of that in every single job that I've ever had.
It is so important, though, isn't it, to be able to talk to the janitor and talk to the president of America and be able to connect?
Absolutely. I think, I studied. My undergraduate degree and my master's degree is in the study of human communication. And so for 7 years, I, put an academic lens on the stuff that I knew so well intrinsically as a person, because I am very much a communicative person. And now for 7 years, I had like this whole study of it. And it's really, why do we communicate in certain ways? How do we do that? What's the most effective ways to do that? This is, very awesome stuff. Like, when you manage a team, what are sort of communication tactics that you need to bring in order to make them feel special, empower them, make them work together, team organizational communication. How are you communicating in the dress that you're wearing? How are, just all of the in interpersonal relationships. My goodness, that has helped my marriage out so much. Like using I statements instead of blaming. I mean, there's so much stuff there that truly is applicable to everything that I do.
That's not marriage, though, is it? Using I statements. you can't swing that one past me.
I'm serious. I mean, even I definitely slip. Believe me, there are definitely slips with a lot of expletives and a lot of F-bombs and all that stuff. But for the most part, if there's a very frustrating thing that's happening between my husband and myself, or an issue that we have, like I have learned and taught myself very, very well how to have a conversation that isn't going to put up a wall against me, that isn't going to make him feel abused or, attacked. And I've learned the language of how to manipulate that conversation in a way that can produce the best results.
Is it a support for you that your husband knows what you're going through? Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in relationships, will be one or the other, and their wives or their partners or whoever it is on their own path, and a lot of them are employees, and then the entrepreneurs are the ones trying to do their own thing at times that aren't sociable. Does your husband understand that, and does he sometimes say, no, Katie, it's time to walk away from it?
That's a great question, and I'll start explaining that by telling this very related story. When I was a young little girl, my family, we grew up Catholic. I'm not Catholic anymore, but I grew up very, very Catholic. And I remember going to my dad and saying, Dad, do I have to marry somebody who's Catholic? And he said, Katie, you don't have to marry somebody who's the same religion as you, but if you do, there will be a heck of a lot less road bumps in your relationship. Now, I would equate that exactly to the question that you just asked, which is, do I have to be married to somebody who's an entrepreneur and who has that mindset? Because it's a very, very different mindset. And my answer would be, you don't have to, but there's a heck of a lot of less bumps in the road because of it. So the roundabout answer to that is absolutely. I mean, my husband is more of an entrepreneur than I am.
Why did you laugh? Why did you laugh then?
Because I'm the way I always describe it is I figure like I always want to tell the story of like my husband, was selling diapers when he was in kindergarten. That's not true. But, like he definitely grew up as an entrepreneur. He had entrepreneurs around him. He was buying and selling things as a young kid. So he has decades of experience as an entrepreneur before I even knew what it was. And so thankfully he has that experience. And so when I'm crying on his shoulder or dealing with an issue, he can tell me from a very seasoned vision what his opinion is, what, kind of how I might be able to react. He can, let me be there to cry on his shoulder, or vice versa. Like he definitely lives in the entrepreneurial space. So absolutely, it's huge. Like I will tell you that I've had friends in my life that are no longer my friends. And I truly believe at the core of me, it's because I shifted from employee to entrepreneur. And it was especially in those early years when it was really freaking hard to be an entrepreneur. I mean, my mentality was shifting about things. My work-life balance did not exist. I was not bringing in the money that I needed to. I mean, it was a lot of like risk all out on the line. And my employee friends didn't understand that. And that's not bad. It's not good. It just is what it is. It was just very different. So when I went to them going, I don't have healthcare because I can't afford it right now. Or, I can't go out to dinner right now because I don't have the money because I have 2 more months that I can pay my mortgage. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. It just, that whole concept of me putting things out on the line that much was so different than what they could comprehend. I had to shift that relationship because what I was getting there was them needing to have me be safe the way that they were safe. And I was not that anymore. So, that's a very, very big struggle. And it's a very sad thing for me, but it is what it is. So I would imagine that same type of relationship, if you have a husband or a wife who is not in that mentality, they better be incredibly open-minded and being ready to, support no matter what it is. Or B, to have somebody who is, an entrepreneur definitely helps because you both are sort of playing in the same game, if you will.
But it seems to me, listening to you talk, that your husband almost, and I'm just talking off the top of my head here because we've only met tonight or this afternoon because you've got a better time zone than I have, and it's probably sunny, even though you're surrounded by fat people.
It is. It's beautifully sunny here.
Yeah.
Hot, but sunny.
But it seems to me that because he's an entrepreneur from heart, that he's probably the ideas man, and he's the one who will drive the business in a certain direction. But because you are a networker and a nurturer, you complement each other, and I bet he's the one that is the kind of the real going force, and you're the one that sort of smooths it a bit. Would I be right?
That's very intuitive of you. That's exactly who we are together. He is definitely the idea guy. He's a visionary. I equate him quite appropriately to the show to Steve Jobs in some senses because he really can see the vision of what people are going to want before they know that they want it. And he's so genius at creating great, marketing strategies that's going to get visibility in this way. I mean, just stuff that I would never even conceptualialize. And then my strength is really bringing those ideas to fruition. So, it's fine if you got somebody who can have 1,000 ideas a day, but, and starts them and, doesn't do anything with them. I'm the one that will sort of bring all that in-house and now say, okay, what's our plan for doing this? What's our budget? What's the outcome that we want? How are we going to grow this? Managing the team members who are taking care of all of those duties. So it is very much a compliment. And I think one of the things that we have really struggled with, but are very good at this now, is understanding and really respecting that compliment. I'm very clear to say, like, our business would not be what it is today if he wasn't here, and he's very clear to say, like, our business wouldn't be what it is today if you weren't here. So, it definitely works itself out.
But you're both taking the risk, aren't you? You're both putting yourself on the line.
Absolutely. You do that in every part of your life. So, but we're so passionate about business. We're so passionate about what we do and what we have the privilege of doing here every single day for our members. And with the podcast, I mean, we're obviously business partners in the podcast as well. I mean, I'm the one there doing it, and I do a heck of a lot of stuff for it, but he is my marketing genius behind it all. He's really the promotional guy. He is the reason why we just rocked it out of the gates. I mean, there's so much, and the podcast would not exist in the manner that it does. Neither would our business if we didn't have both of us together. So, it's a very, very good compliment.
I'm going to play a little speech now because it complements what you've just been saying amazingly. And have a listen to this. I'm sure you've heard this because it's gone viral recently, but I think it's so powerful. I'm going to bring it on the show.
My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that was possible for him. And so he made a conservative choice. Instead, he got a safe job as an accountant. And when I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job. And our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which was that you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
You're doing what you love, aren't you?
I love that speech, by the way. I was crying at the end of that speech. Absolutely. I really do. There are hard days. There are hard moments that I have. This is true. Running a company for the sake of providing value and using yourself as the conduit for something greater in this world, and in my experience, doing that through a business is one of the most challenging self-development things that you could possibly do. But God, do I love it. I really, really love it.
What would you say to people who are out there listening to this and they've got that idea in their head and it's been going around for a while, and they might sort of mention it to one or two people in the office, and you might get one person going, yes, go for it, and the other person going, oh, it's never going to work. You're going to be here in 6 years' time. You know it. How can they take that idea and become the version of you, or the version of Jim Carrey, or the people that are finding something that they love and taking that risk because they need to do it?
Well, I would say the first piece of advice is to really truly get the idea through your head that life is a risk. Like everything, just like Jim Carrey just said, like you could stay in your nice, safe little job and in 10 years they fire your butt because, that's the way the business, that's what the business has to do to survive. So there is no such thing as a safe choice. There really is not. Now, once you understand that, then it's very easy to choose, like, just do it, just move. My constant, thing that goes on in my head is just move, just keep moving and fail fast. Fail fast. And that means, that failure is a part of the journey, and it has to be, and it should be, because you learn a heck of a lot from it. But just going out there and doing it, probably the worst case scenario is that you have, let's say for you, David, you have this book, and let's say you still have a passion of bringing that book to the world. The worst thing that you could do is build it up in your mind so much and work behind the scenes on this for decades. And then when you're 50, put it out there and it doesn't connect with anyone. That's the worst thing that you could do. So the best thing to do with an idea is try it and see what kind of response that you get. Because just because you think it's a good idea and maybe 5 friends have told you that it's a good idea, doesn't mean it's a great idea. Doesn't mean that the market is asking for it. So trying it is the best thing that you could do. So try, spend a couple bucks and give it a whirl, and give yourself like, hey, I'm just going to give it my energy to this for 3 months and see what happens, and then go for it.
And keep moving and fail fast. That is a classic phrase. Do you consider your failures? Because that's something else that's been coming out in conversations, that the real movers and shakers, ziggers and zaggers, just kind of go, no, that was a stepping stone. That was one of my dots. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, I think that's very true. I don't see them as failures. I might call them failures because, that's what we all know them as. But kind of related to that last question that you just asked me, the person who's in their job and thinks, let me try, the most beautiful thing about this life is that when you try and you take 3 steps forward, you're now in a new place. And so whatever decision you need to make in that 3 steps forward place is not the decision you would have made 3 steps back. And it's not going to be the decision that you would have made at step 10. So you're like in this new place where now new things are available to you, and you see the world differently all of a sudden. So it just puts you on this path. So yes, I've had so many failures, and every single one of them got me to a new place, or they kicked my butt so hard as to where I was like, moaning and groaning in agony on the ground because it was so painful. And I remember that pain and I don't want it again. So I'm going to change what I'm doing in order to, make sure that I don't have that pain again. So it just moves you forward. I can't say that enough. It just continues to move you forward so that I am in a new place to be able to handle whatever the next thing is going to be and then learn from that.
Because I don't think I've ever had a failure, and being absolutely honest with you, I think it was a case that I was always in my comfort zone. So I never really put myself out enough that I didn't know that it was going to work for me. And this is the first time in my life that it could fall flat on its face. And God knows what's going to happen if it does, but it could. And I've learned so much over the last maybe 3 or 4 or 5, 6 months or whatever it's been. And the major one that I've learned more than anything else is if I feel that's something scary, I have to do it, even though I don't want to. And that is the thing that, well, now I look back on all the scary things that I've done, they are the ones I go, wow, that was brilliant. Actually, I'm so glad I did that now, but it was scary. And even though I've moved that envelope and I've stepped forward into the next area, I'm just finding more scary things to do. And then the next bit. And I think that's the path that I've found for myself, and it's helping to drive me through, is using my body as a compass for the fear. And if it's a frightening thing, I've got to do it. And if it's not, then it's just where I am anyway, and it's not going to push me forward.
I think that's so true. And David, to make that even, to put light on that, I think that, the more you practice stepping into that fear, the easier it becomes. So all of a sudden, you get very, very good at making very risky and scary decisions because you're just used to it and you have gone through the ups and downs of what that might look like. And, it's okay. When I was in college, a freshman in college, I went to Arizona State University. And I remember I was this, big athlete who loved sports growing up. And when I went to ASU, I went on an academic scholarship, and a couple months into it, I was like, oh my God, I miss softball so much. Softball was like my major sport. So I went to try out for ASU, and I made the cut, and then got cut, like did not make it. So I didn't make it onto the walk-on team. And I really, like, it kind of shook me. I was like, oh, but I really, really still do want to play. And so what happened is that I found like a community college team that was not too far away. And I went and tried out for them and said, okay, cool. Let me see if I could go play for them. Well, I made the team there, but the deal was that in order to be eligible to play there, I needed to go full time. In order to go full time there, I needed to stop going full time at ASU. But I had a full ride at ASU. I had 4 years paid for if I just maintained a certain GPA, which would have been fine. And one of the criteria is that you had to maintain at least like 12 credits or something. So there's no way I could have taken 24 credits and played softball. So I had that decision of, do I let go of the money and follow my desire to play softball, knowing that maybe that's not going to be what I want to do in 10 years? Or do I keep with the money because it's a free ride and not pursue this dream? And I remember having a conversation with my mom, and she goes, Katie, what's the worst that can happen? Like, follow what you're truly passionate about. Everything works out. It's okay. If you drop the money, like, it'll work out. Like, just follow what truly makes you happy, and everything works out. My parents are awesome. So I decided to, I dropped out. I went down to like one class at ASU because I needed one class in order to still live on campus. And I love living on campus. So I dropped down to one class, which means that after one semester at ASU, I said goodbye to my whole full ride there. Went over to the community college, played softball there for 2 years, was very happy. But after 2 years, I was done. And what ended up happening was that like I said before, like 3 steps later, I saw the world differently. So, 2 years later, I was done with softball. I had done my thing. I lived that out. But now I could go back to ASU to be there full time. But now I had to pay for it. So I ended up becoming a resident assistant where, my room and board was paid for. So all I had to pay for were the classes. And so it ended up working itself out. I had an amazing college experience. And it wouldn't have happened because I made that decision very, very early on as an 18-year-old. That's a serious decision for an 18-year-old to make by yourself. I got very, very good at making hard decisions. And I always would lead from what is my true passion? What do I truly want to do? And if it's a huge screw up, I'll figure it out. And thankfully, I had parents who drilled that into me and who were super supportive of that.
That is the answer, isn't it? Just figure it out.
Yeah.
It's so simple. But I was sitting there with my kids this afternoon, and it's 6-week school holidays, that awful time when the kids are here all the time. And it's supposed to be joyful, and after 3 minutes you think to yourself, oh, please go back to school just for a while. And I was sitting talking to them, and I was saying to them, really, I know you're only young, but you've got to realise that you've got to dream, and you've got to dream big. Because if you dream big, so many people don't follow it through, and then you've got more chance. And it's come out time and time again in the conversations that it doesn't matter how early you are or how young you are, you can make those big decisions. And if you make those big decisions as a youngster, as a 9-year-old or a 12-year-old, as I'm trying to inspire my 2 kids, even if you're not doing anything with that big decision, it starts to grow, and it starts to grow in your mind. And tomorrow I'm talking to a chap, and this is inspiring, called Houston Gunn. I don't know if you've heard of Houston Gunn. And he's a 16-year-old entrepreneur, money lender, author, God knows what. And he's based in Nashville, I think. I'm trying to remember. And he was at school when he was about 14 years old. And the head was standing up there and going, if you do your qualifications and your exams, by the time you retire, you could all have £1 million. And everyone went, yeah, brilliant, brilliant. And he sat there in his head and went, hang on, that's 40 years and that's like 25 grand a year. Shouldn't we be cheering that, you know, by the time you leave college, you could be a millionaire? Isn't that what better? And so he just had this moment and he went bang. And even at the age of 14, he started working towards it. And he is, you know, he's still in college now. He's coming on the show tomorrow. And he's speaking to people like Dave Ramsey and Donald Trump and people, you know, unbelievable. Wow. Unbelievable. Yeah. So it's never too early to start, is it? It really isn't. And even if it's just you thinking about it, you know, as Napoleon Hill talks about, Think and Grow Rich, you think about things enough. And as Katie says, you figure it out. And once you figure it out, wow, it's like rocket power.
Yeah, yeah. And it's never too late to do that either.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
You know, the other end of that coin is that, you know, okay, so you've been in your comfy job for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. You've had this great career, but you really have a passion somewhere else. I mean, it's just not too late. Like, you know, I think the whole point of this conversation is you got to connect with what that fire is, just like when you were a little kid, when it was, you know, there was nothing else that could hinder it, and just move forward with it. Just keep on moving with it. Make little things that you can do with it and just see the possibilities. Otherwise, what the hell are we doing in this life? You know, like if we don't live big, and big for me does not mean, you know, is different for everyone. Maybe living big is the fact that you have, you know, 4 kids and you're just this amazing mom, and, you know, you get to truly, you know, be part of raising up this great generation. I mean, whatever your big is, if you don't truly go at it with full force, what the hell are you doing? Like, you know, there's no other way to live other than just trying, falling on your butt, getting back up, doing it again, training your mind to think positively about it and to not beat yourself up for it and to connect with other people. I mean, that's a whole point of this thing, is just to be so interconnected, to be true to who we are, and to live our lives as authentically as we possibly can in a way that truly allows us to live in line with what we're supposed to be doing. And you only, you know, you as an individual really knows what that is.
Let's join up those dots. I'm going to bring Steve Jobs on now because he once said some words which I think really ties up nicely, not just this conversation, but all our conversations. So this is Steve Jobs.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever, because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference.
That's true to your life, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, why is it?
I think
why is it so true, though? Is there a big dot in your life that you can go, yes, that's really when Katie was born? The Katie you are now.
Man, I don't think that there's one big dot. I think it is a series of all of these things. Once again, you know, being an athlete and being an overachiever, being a part of a very loving and supportive family with a lot of people in it, and loving people is, you know, a whole point of it. You know, going through and, you know, just making very, very hard decisions at a very early age. All of those things sort of lent themselves to what I've experienced. You know, when I graduated with my master's degree here in Florida, I made this dream book, and it was like my book of dream jobs and who has my dream job, what is my dream job, and who has it. And I reached out to those people and said, hey, this is a job that I think would be super cool. I'd love to talk to you about what you do and find out more about the industry. And my God, I got to talk to a lot of heads of great industries. And they had coffee with me. They were wonderful. And, I got to find out about what was really there. And after college, I sort of went into the space of, I was really into road races and triathlons, and I had done event planning. So that kind of perfect marriage of that was actually organizing road races and triathlons here, which is very, very popular here in Florida. And so I met with, at that time, the guy who was the head of the St. Anthony's Triathlon, which is an Olympic recognized triathlon here. And he was wonderful to me. He ended up being a mentor to me. He got me, a couple, contracting jobs here and there, helping people out. And once again, all of that stuff just helped me figure it out. And I didn't know what I wanted. I shouldn't say that. I didn't know who I was going to be in any of those moments. I just knew that I'm just going to keep on following where I think my next step is. And I have this great vision of what I think that is. But, many times I was disappointed along the way going, oh, okay, I'm not going to be in the triathlon industry anymore. Okay, that's not really for me. And now I got to kind of go back to the drawing board and see what that's about. But the commonalities were always there. And man, even in the space of entrepreneurship, once again, when I jumped in, my husband actually started the organization that we're in now. And I came into the organization about 9 months after it started. And the very, very quick story of that is I didn't even know him when he started the company. 6 months later, we ended up, seeing each other, hanging out as friends, and then, became a couple. And so as soon as we became a couple, I was sort of being the, helpful girlfriend. Oh, let me go help you with those sales packets, and I'll go help and make a process for this. And that quickly turned into, me sort of being a major part of this company. So from somebody who had a corporate mentality at 30 years old to now, 5 years later, I had to go through a hell of a lot of personal development and leadership development and entrepreneurial development to figure out what it was for me to be an entrepreneur. So, to connect the dots looking back now, just within those past 5 years of what it has meant for me to be an entrepreneur. Beyond that, historically, I can see all those skills and those characteristic traits that lend themselves to who I am today and have always been there. But just within this space of being an entrepreneur, oh my gosh, every single challenge that I had, every single crying moment that I had because I didn't know how to deal with this. We were still discovering how to really be great business partners, and we were kind of stepping on each other's toes, and it was bleeding into the relationship. Every single trial that I have had and ways to, things that I came across that I realized that I was not great at, which was a very hard thing for me. I would have my little pity party for a little while, and then I would reach inside, and I still do this. I reach inside and be like, how do I grow? How do I grow from this? Because there's so much more. And there are definitely moments where I feel I'm strapped, like I have nothing more to give, and there's no way I can possibly keep working on, expanding myself, and then I dig in, and then I keep growing, So, to really circle back around on all of that stuff, looking back now on those dots of just my entrepreneurial journey, holy cow. I can see very clearly how I've evolved. My husband and I were just talking about this last night. I asked him, how have you most evolved as a business person these past, 5-6 years? And how have I done that? And I think it's so important to do that. I'm constantly kind of keeping track of what happened in order to help me visualize and goal set for where I want to go.
You're very aware, though, aren't you, Katie? Even, at the younger age, when you were reaching out to these people because you wanted those jobs, and so ask them how to do it. I didn't dream of doing that. I should have reached out to Simon Le Bon. I should have said to him, Simon, how do I become a lead singer of a pop group? But that is very aware to do that. And I suppose now, with hindsight and maturity, I would do that as well. But I wouldn't have done it at that age.
Yeah, I don't know what that is about me. I've always been very, very self-aware. I was always sort of taking stock of who I am, what's going on, who, was that situation good or bad? How can I act better in that situation? What happened? I mean, even in the most immature, early junior high school days up until, even as a young adult, very, very hyper aware. And I think it's always been driven from this desire to really live a life that's in line with where I'm supposed to be. So it's not a struggle. I think when you live outside of what you're supposed to be doing, or you live a life that is incongruent with yourself, it's struggle. It's hard. So I think it came from pain, from, I got to know who I am so I know what my right path is. So I know how to live in, congruency with who I am and what this world is for me, and vice versa. And I just, for whatever reason, I just constantly was very, very self-aware. And, I think some of that comes I shouldn't say naturally. Some of that comes because I, from a very early age, was researching different religions. I wanted to, I found Buddhism. I found, all these different ways of looking at the world. I would, read from the Dalai Lama. I would read, the Think and Grow Rich. I would read the Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I would read all these books that were very philosophical. Who are you? Tony Robbins. I mean, I just ingest and still do ingest this stuff because it makes me see the world in a different way. It makes me question myself and really analyze myself so I can show up to the world as the woman that I truly want to be and be in line with that.
Last question, just before I send you back in time to have a one-on-one with your younger self on the Sermon on the Mic. Do you think, because I'll be honest, I'm going to preempt this, I now think this, that every single one of our listeners here can create a life which is beyond what they've got at the moment if they want to. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the best traits of every single entrepreneur that I know, but you don't have to be an entrepreneur to have this trait, is that you're never satisfied. There's always something more. And I think that's a good thing. So that's absolutely possible. And I think, there's so many tools out there. That's why shows like this are so important, because you really get to feel that inspiration of how possible it is, how anyone can do it. And the key to doing that is just by being truly in touch with who you are, what's important to you, and then just going after it. Because what do you have to lose? I mean, what do you have to lose?
And honestly, if I can do it, anyone can, because I really am the most non-technical person you've ever known in your life. I say this a lot, but I don't have a mobile phone. I don't have a tablet. I don't have anything. Yeah, people always go, what? But I don't. I'm creating this world that I can switch off, and it was very important to me to be able to do that. I never wanted to have it 24/7. I want to switch on, do it, and then just disappear. And I see people on islands, and I think that must be amazing to be on your own island. I was talking to a chap the other day who lives on an island off Panama at the moment, Graham Hughes, and he's the man who was the first man to go to every single country on Earth. And he's sitting on this island on Panama, and he's got Wi-Fi. And I think that's absolutely amazing. And he says, I can just switch it off and switch it on. And if I want to be in contact, bang. If I don't, bang. And so I do think, with anyone out there, if you have excuses in your head for why you're not doing something because you're not technically involved, or you haven't got this, or you haven't got that, you're being a fool to yourself. Because if I can do it, anyone can do it. All you need to do is want it hard enough.
That's very true. And remember that every single person who is living a life that is in line with them, every single one of them had those doubts. Every single one of them thought, oh my gosh, I don't know if I could do this. Oh my gosh, I don't know if I can take that risk. I mean, every single one of us has had those or still has those. The trick is, and the differentiator is, being willing to push those thoughts aside and move forward.
I have those every day, every show. Before I press record, I think, am I going to connect? Am I going to think of things to say? Is it going to be stilted? Blah, 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 blah. Is this going to be terrible? And, I've done 150 shows, so I should be easing into it, but I'm not. I still have that nervous energy. And you can probably hear that in all the shows at the very beginning, the sort of first 15 minutes. I'm kind of all over the place, and my brain's going, and then I kind of ease into it. And then the conversation starts to flow. But at the beginning, I wasn't ever planning to speak about olives, but it came out.
And we came back around to the olives.
We did. That's the joining up dots. That's the beauty of it. It's cylindrical. So let's really connect your dots now and send you back in time, because this is the part of the show that's a real powerhouse. And this is when we send you back in time to have a one-on-one with your younger self. And if you could go back and have a chat, what would you say? And what age of Katie would you choose? Would it be the inspirational one who wants to play for the Cubs? Would it be the one in sort of the healthcare? Which Katie would you choose? So this is the Sermon on the Mic.
Here we go with the best bit of the show, the Sermon on the Mic. The Sermon on the Mic.
Katie girl, what's up? All right, so you are about 16 years old right now. You're playing a lot of sports, you're having fun, and you're about to go into college, and you have such great ideas and visions ahead of you. Don't lose those. Keep a hold of those, and do not be scared. Make some very hard decisions in your life, and don't ever, ever, ever be held by money. You have always thought, especially in those years, that money can hold you back, and it just doesn't. It doesn't. You don't have to wait for things to be in line in order for you to try things and in order for you to jump out and have the freedom that you so have desired every single day of your life. You just don't have to wait. Just keep pushing forward. And just try. Just keep trying stuff. And don't be afraid. You are good enough. There is nothing in this world that you can't do if you put your mind to it. And when you fail, that's a great thing. That's a really good indicator that you got to keep moving forward.
Do you think the young Katie would have listened?
Yeah, I think she would have, actually. I think she really would have.
I think she would, because she's aware, isn't she? She's aware. She's got an old head on that young body.
Yeah, very much so.
Katie, how can our audience connect with you?
The best way to connect with me is to go to my website for the podcast, which is bizwomenrock.com. Or you can connect with me on Facebook. I'm super active there. And just go to facebook.com/Katie Krimitsos. And chat it up with me. Let me know what's up.
I'm sure they will. Katie, thank you so much for spending time with us today, joining up those dots. And please come back again when you have more dots to join up, because I do believe that by joining up the dots and connecting our pasts, it's actually the best way to build our futures. Katie, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, David. You're awesome.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Weekend Rewind with Join Up Dots. If you're inspired by podcasts and have the desire to create one yourself and build income into your life, doing something that's incredibly fun, whether you've got a business already or you're just starting from scratch, we have got the #1 tutorials for you. Go over to podcastersmastery.com and you will be sent a free 12-part video course teaching you how to start podcasting. So that's podcastersmastery.com, and of course next weekend we will have another episode of Weekend Rewind.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice That Every Successful Entrepreneur Practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.